Hi there. Long-time listeners of the show might remember Paul Bosley, who was on the podcast previously talking about all things glamping financing. Paul is from Business Finance Depot, and they specialize in SBA loans, USDA loans, and equipment financing. Now, Paul is my go-to guy for glamping financing. Whenever someone asks me for financing help with their glamping project, I always introduce them to him. He's able to help with so many different types of loans. He's so knowledgeable. He's got relationships with a lot of different banks, and he's just generally my go-to guy because he's so versatile with that. Now, Paul has a financial planning spreadsheet that his clients use that is really detailed and allows you to plan out everything from setup costs to revenues, profits, return on investments, payback times, etc. And we're actually giving it away for free to podcast listeners. So check out the link in the description. There'll be a link there to download the financial planning spreadsheet. You can input all your data and it will churn out all those numbers for you to help get you started on your financing journey. And if you want an introduction to Paul, just let me know and I will do that. And just so you know, if any of my clients or prospects secure financing with Paul through my introduction, we do get a nice little commission as well. So if you want to support the podcast and me personally, then just let me know and I'll happily introduce you to Paul and hopefully he can solve your financing needs. So again, there's a link in the description to download the financial planning spreadsheet. It really is worth a go. And if you want an intro to Paul, just let me know and I'll set you up right away. And my email is nick@glampytech.com if you did want that intro. So download that spreadsheet. Let me know if you want to speak to Paul and on to the episode. So Connor, we finally hit 1,000 YouTube subscribers today.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Been a long road. We crawled over the line. I think we've been probably doing it on YouTube for about 2 years, but we got there in the end.
You know what? We appreciate every single one of them.
Every single one of you, especially the ones that comment. There are a few regular ones, so shout out to you guys. Today's guest is a little bit different, actually. He's got his own location out in the desert, and it's very much not in line with the Big Knolls, the Blakes, the Irenes, that kind of calm, relaxing luxury glamping. It's basically a whole nother world that he's created out there, and it's an immersive experience that is very different to any of the operators and the locations that we spoke to on the podcast. So Travis's mind with Outpost X worked very, very differently, and we're looking forward to getting into that. And yeah, Connor, I don't know if you've got any thoughts before he arrives.
Yeah, in the last 2 weeks, I've had 3 or 4 people reach out and tell me, mention his name or say I need to chat with Travis or look up his content. And some of it's about glamping, some of it's about Burning Man, some of it's about men's retreats, some of it's about Star Wars because I love Star Wars. So I'm excited to meet him and dive into a lot of those things. And I think it's going to be a really interesting and unique conversation that will unfold today.
Yeah, he's got a very different mind. He's created a whole different world out of that mind, and he's also very, very good at marketing as well. He sold his previous marketing agency for like 20 odd million, so he's very switched on that front, which is partially why he's been so successful too, as well as how completely unique his concept is. So I'm really looking forward to getting into that. So without further ado, here's Travis Chambers. We're live. So Travis, welcome to the show. Outpost X, you've created an unbelievable, unique world out in the deserts of Utah. I don't know what you wanted to kind of introduce first, whether it's the concept of the site or the whole world / story that you've created. You probably know better than me kind of which way round to order it. So I'm going to give you the floor, but I'd like you to introduce in whatever order you like, the concept of the site and then the concept of the world and story that you've created on the site.
Okay, so Outpost X is another world. It's in the future, but it incorporates a lot of ancient things. And there's these 2 brothers that were separated at birth, and they find each other later in life. And while one of them's gone, the planet gets hit with a solar flare. And so they basically come back and they rebuild this world, and that world is Outpost X. So when you're getting there, you're in the middle of this story of this place getting rebuilt. And the people, there's like a culture, they're really big on like wellness and health and adventure, and so there's 20 characters that you can kind of get immersed into when you're there. And there's sand cruisers there, so you hop on these these like art cars, and you drive around, and there's an audio guided tour telling you about the world. And one of the characters takes you on that ride, and you get to hear. And there's all these stops, and the stops tell all the history of this world, all sorts of stories and parts of the culture and things like that. And it's cool. We have like themed food. We put ingredients in your refrigerator, and you can cook these themed meals. You can rent wardrobe. You can buy a drinking horn, which gets you into the mocktail cantina, and you can make all these cool themed drinks. And then that's I think that's it. Yeah, that's the rundown.
And what kind of accommodation are we talking?
We have 3 caves, and we have 4 zendomes, which are like these reflective mirrored cubes with these clear domes. So you're just fully in the stars at night.
Oh, well, we talk all the time about how important storytelling is in the hospitality space. And I think that was the best, most vivid, most unique storytelling that I've heard. And I guess I didn't know that your property incorporated, theater, or I don't know if that's called like live action theater, but having real role playing, characters around the property. So that's super interesting. How long have you guys been open?
We're about 8 months now.
Wow.
And you do actually have like people walking around the site playing these roles, right?
Yeah. We have a lot more to do to tie in the whole quest and story and stuff. But I think a lot of people are living their own story. They're doing their own thing. But a lot of people do bring, they dress up and, get into it.
You've got to tell us, Connor and I were saying how you two are fellow, I don't know what's the term, Burning Man people, is it?
You might just say
people?
Burners.
Burners, there you go.
Or you could just call us burn people.
Yeah,
or sand people.
In your little clique, yeah. That sounds like the kind of creative idea that would come out of something like that. I'm curious to know, where this idea came from, and what made you decide to be like, right, fuck it, I'm going to do this.
I think I'm like a poser, Burning Man. Do you guys remember when we were growing up? Everyone call you a poser. You wore like skate stuff. I think I'm a Burning Man poser. I've only been once for like 2 days, 3 days. But it was funny because when I was building Outpost, I kept getting comments saying, "Oh, he's building a Burning Man hotel," and I was like, "I don't know. I've never been to Burning Man. I don't know what Burning Man is." And then I went there, and I was like, "Oh, there's 60,000 people doing something similar, and they have been doing it for 25 years." Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, but ours is the burn's only a week, and yours is permanent. So that's exciting.
So what did the launch story look like? From conception all the way through to opening.
Conception to opening. I had a couple. I've been to like 30 countries, taking my little family around, but there was 2 experiences in particular that made me think maybe this was the best for the first concept. Obviously, found the right piece of land with the dry lake bed and the mountains, and I was at a place called Al Maha in Dubai in the dunes, and you're in a little like Bedouin cob structure, and you're just running with the gazelles in the dunes. That was a really surreal experience. And then obviously, like, Outpost X is not affiliated with Star Wars or Disney in any way, but I walked into Star Wars land, and I like melted my brain. And what's crazy is I wasn't even a Star Wars fan. Now I am. Now I've like dove in, but I picked that concept, that like desert kind of futuristic hut, third world countries.
Would you call it ancient format? Futurism? A long time ago, but somehow in the future.
Yeah, exactly. I like the aesthetic because it's kind of, I knew I couldn't pull off high-end luxury because I don't have enough experience to pull that off. So I thought that was the right thing to pull off. Some third world huts. I can do that.
That's the first guest we've ever had that's described their glamping site as third world, but that's great. So yeah, I mean, that's one thing I did want to touch on actually. A lot of in fact, pretty much everyone we speak to on here is going down the same route of kind of high-end luxury, relaxing in nature kind of thing, but feels like you're going for something very, very different, and it's completely unique experience that isn't, it's a little bit off the beaten path. So I'm curious to know what kind of experience you want your guests to kind of feel when they're staying at Outpost X.
I really wanted to make a place where people could leave the world behind and still be in America. So I'd say most of the best tourism experiences for Americans are outside of America. The States is not super creative, and not a ton of craftsmanship goes into a lot of U.S. projects. I think it's because the U.S. is mostly ran by like finance people who like to nail and scale. And so there's not a lot of things that get built in America that are not where you can deploy $100 million. So, but you go to Mexico or in most places in the world, and it's usually friends and family getting together with some local investors and building something that they really care about. That's beauty. And America's kind of all about franchises and, but I don't know. I feel like that's changing. And so Outpost though it's a place, you can leave America behind and you can go to a different place in a different time. And my goal is that is a transformational experience for people. I think a lot of the theme park experiences are pretty transformational for people, but I think being able to stay for 2 days or 3 days and to fully get into this character is cool. And we've had a lot of people come to Outpost and say that it's made a big impact on them. We've had some people say they decided to have kids because they sat and looked at the stars till 3 a.m. We've had it's supposed to be a place of healing and kind of escape, to just take a break and reflect. And I think nature does that really well too. But I really wanted to weave in a story and just get people to see themselves differently, I guess.
Yeah, and we should say, as always, there will be links to Outpost X in the description, and always recommend just taking a look, whilst you're listening, so you can really get a feel of what it actually looks like and the kind of immersion that you'd have. I imagine, it's not a hard sell, those traditional operators that I mentioned who are aiming for luxury and, hey, just come to nature, relax, and you can imagine that's not particularly polarizing. Now imagine what you're creating, where it is unapologetically different. I'm sure some people don't like it, and maybe they don't realize what they're getting themselves in for. So I'm curious to know, if you ever do get that kind of response, and how you're able to deal with that.
Yeah, it's about 1 out of 5 people don't really like Outpost very much, and 4 out of 5 people just absolutely love it. And it kind of comes down to what type of person they are. It's like someone who loves adventure and they love to be inspired and they love creativity. But people who come looking for a luxury hotel or resort experience, they're not going to like it. Like, we've had people roll up in a Rolls Royce, walk into the room and just leave. And that's okay. Like, for the first time, I feel like an artist, because before I had a company that I made ads for a living. So I got paid to be creative, but only to sell stuff. Outpost, I got to be creative on a lot bigger scale with the storytelling and architecture, design, hospitality, experiential, wellness. I get to really get into all these different facets. But Outpost X is it's more of an art experience than it is a hotel. But I think based on what I've seen, about 80% of people are our people. And so I've been really working hard to show the place exactly as it is so that we attract our people. What's really interesting, though, is have you all heard of Azulik?
No.
So Azulik is my favorite experiential stay. It's in Tulum. It's got about 2.5 million followers for the property. And Roth Azulik is my favorite designer. He builds a lot of curved shapes out of micro cement and branches and sticks, and puts this resin over. And he's created this village canopy that's an eco sustainable village that you get to stay in, and it's like you're entering a different place and time. And if you look up the reviews, it's mostly 1-star reviews at the top. It looks about a 3.6 star stay. And that's been really helpful for me because it makes me realize that you got to stand for something. No one hates a Hampton Inn. Also, no one likes a Hampton Inn either. So, I don't want to be the Nickelback of hotels, right? I want to be the System of a Down of hotels. A lot of people would not like System of a Down, but I do. So it's just about finding our people, and it's interesting because what we're doing, it kind of melts the brains of a lot of finance people. They just don't get it. We even worked with one guy for a while that we were going to partner with. Eventually, he got to the point where he's like, guys, this is just too, I can't wrap my head around it. But the more and more we get momentum, the more and more we're finding our group. And, we've got 25 million views collectively from all the people who have stayed there in the last 2 months, 150,000 site visits, 350,000 social shares. And right now, Outpost X is the most viewed destination outside of Vegas in the entire Intermountain West. So the demand for Outpost is probably 50x of supply. And yesterday, we got our conditional use permits to expand. So
congrats. That's huge.
I'm excited. A lot of excited things happening. I'm going to be honest though, guys. Before we opened, I was kind of wondering if I ruined my life for a bit.
Tell us about that.
Oh, so we did an Indiegogo campaign. We did about 930,000 in bookings, which is a full year of bookings spread out over a year and a half. And we opened late, so we had to reschedule all those bookings. We had about $100,000 in refunds. It was a lot of work, and it was very stressful. And building off grid in the middle of the desert when you have no construction experience is a pretty crazy experience. And so it's been nice. Like, I had to learn planning and zoning and development, which is a whole skill set. Get your 10,000 hours in that. Then I had to learn construction because I couldn't get any builders out there during the construction boom. No one wanted to touch caves in the desert. So I had to learn how to do that. And now I've had to learn property management, which is a whole new thing to figure out. And now I've gotten through all those three things where I'm at least like a minimum viable competency level there, where at least I can hire the right people, which I did a lot of not doing, right? And now I'm in the capital raise thing. So it's been really fun because I was just a marketing guy who had too much money when I started this. And now I've gone through, gotten the degree, I guess. And so now we can do more of these, and we're getting some crazy validation on this Viking Village concept right now.
Tell us about that.
So I've got maybe 100 concepts for these places written down, and my dream is to build 3 or 4 of these a year at about 25 units, 30 units. And we've got one halfway done in Puerto Rico that we're going to open up investment for here pretty soon to accredited investors. Checks probably 50,000 and up. We're also going to open up the expansion of Outpost. And then after that, it's Viking Village. It's going to be called Tehala Soul Center. And I just posted about 6 days ago. I just found a cool Viking Village video and then talked about how we're going to do it, just the idea. You guys know ideas never get attention. You don't get attention on something to actually do it. Everyone talks about their ideas. Well, this idea is a powder keg. It's at 1.5 million views now.
Jeez.
And I've gotten about 60 accredited investor leads from that video. And I think the reason is that Viking Village checks every box in the Chambers Stay thesis. It's experiential. It's connecting you to ancestral wisdom, and you can teach primitive earth skills like fire making, possibly like dressing and preparing an animal. Like, doing some blacksmith work, metal work, getting people into a lot of those really rewarding kind of ancestral education opportunities. And then it's also like you're entering another world, so you could still have a backstory, you could still be a character. But my favorite thing about the Viking Village is it gives us permission to go into the ancient ways in a way that's not polarizing or politicized. You know, there's a lot of things where we live in this modern day and age, and our culture is consumption based, and people are not really finding the happiness and fulfillment. And so what do? Do you go back to old Native American cultures and wisdom? And is everyone allowed to do that? Not really. You know, there's a lot of political problems if that's how you want to reconnect with this old wisdom. But Nordic ancestry is something that everyone can participate in, and there's no appropriation. Everyone's allowed. So that's kind of why I'm really excited about the Viking Village.
What's your kind of process for actually designing these sites? So, obviously you've designed Outpost X. Presumably you're going to be starting to brainstorm how the Viking Village fits together. Do you bring in someone to do that, or are you the one that's physically drawing out the sketches? How does that work?
Yeah, I usually design the experience, and then I usually bring in a designer. And on Outpost, I just drew everything on cardboard, and we just kind of went for it. A lot of it was engineered afterwards. A lot of our contractors make fun of us because we built everything at Outpost twice. It was $1 million over budget. So I'm excited to do the Viking Village the right way, where you have you plan it properly and you have all your everything done. But now I know, right? So now I'm looking for the right architect to work with, the right designer, and get all the right people to build it. I think the big thing that we're going to do differently now is we're going to start doing prefab modular construction. So with the Viking Village, it'll probably be all pre-cut timber, and so we'll figure that out.
It feels like as well, you're designing these experiences to, as you said, kind of check off all the boxes in the chamber stays list. But it also feels like you've got virality in mind as well. You're creating something that will pop off massively on socials. So, similar. We spoke to a guy called Derry Green who does similar. He designs his units around kind of what's going to do really well on Instagram Reels, for example. I think you're taking it to a whole new level by just creating the whole concept kind of to a degree around virality. So what's it like doing that, creating something with social media in mind, knowing that it's kind of, or hoping that it's going to, explode on there?
I think if you can create something that inspires people and brings out their inner child and sparks their imagination, you're giving them a gift, because you're helping that person get into their most pure state. I don't want to get too meta with this, but I recently saw an article that said that mycelium and fungi they found have a 4-year-old vocabulary. So those organisms are communicating about threats, I have a 4-year-old and she's fluent in English, and she's having a lot of complex thoughts. She makes jokes. So to think that there's an organism that came from the similar ancestor as us, that is communicating at that level, I feel like that is the state of consciousness that someone is in when they're in their creative state, when there's no fear, there's no there's no harsh kind of societal influences. I think when you get somebody into that inner child state, that's when they're going to be the most productive, creative. That's when the healing is going to occur. And so there's this thing about play, and I think everybody wants to play. And I think that there are some people who make fun of Outpost X. I think there's a lot of people who make fun of LARPers, but me, I never grew up. I never grew up, and I'm really happy I didn't. And when I've gone through really hard things in my life, it really is the imagination is what has kept me going. Not to get too dark, but I my dad was gone 5 days a week, and my mom didn't want to have kids and had some drug problems, some mental illness problems. So me and my brother were locked in separate rooms, in a laundry room and a closet, for about 8 hours a day until we went to public school. And so all I had was my imagination. I didn't have toys. I didn't have any of that stuff. And so I feel like this is like the gift. If we can get people into that state, I think it can really help people view the world differently and view themselves differently as well.
I couldn't agree more. And play and unlocking the inner child is so important. And it is interesting that I don't think that has come up in any of the podcast episodes that I've been on, is like, we want to get our guests to play, which is something that we focus a lot in like our Burning Man group and these self-development groups that I do. And like with the friends that I am surrounding myself with these days, it kind of comes up a lot. But yeah, it doesn't come up a lot in this business. And I think it's hugely powerful in creating a container, like you said, that's safe, where people feel like they're not going to get ridiculed by others or by a boss, or have, expectations, or something's a stupid idea or a waste of time, or they're going to look dumb. If you can mitigate those negative repercussions, it can create a really special experience. How's that manifesting at Outpost X currently?
It's working. Like, when I drive around Outpost, I see all these people in costume. I've seen baby boomers, like named Dave and Carol types. I see families. I see like little kids bonding. It's a simulation, and like about 80% of people get that. Yeah, I mean, there's this couple, they called me and they said, we sat for they said, look, we've done all the luxury stuff in Vegas that you could do, but we sat out till 3 a.m. and just stared at the stars at Outpost, and we decided we're to have children because of it. That is the outcome that I'm hoping for. Like, I want people to go there and create new businesses. I want there to go think about their relationships. I want them to think about what they're doing with their life. And I think Outpost does that. Like, Outpost has a lot of it has a lot of shortcomings as a hotel, for sure, but I feel like it's achieving that goal, that mission. And so I'm really excited as we do it more to further elevate the hotel experience without necessarily trying to make it luxury, but really keeping that kind of thing that I think that's the thing that Walt Disney did really well. Like, he just found that part of that magic, to draw that out of people.
Hi, friends. This is your host, Connor Schwab at Sage Outdoor Advisory. If you're launching an outdoor hospitality project like glamping, we can help. We offer feasibility studies and appraisals. What that means is we look at your specific market and proposed business offering and complete an in-depth analysis and financial projections to make sure that your planned business will be profitable. Getting a second opinion on your proposal and forecasted financials is critical to understand before you spend years of your time and hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is particularly important if you are looking to raise money for your project from a bank or private investors. They are going to want to see this type of in-depth analysis from an independent third-party specialist in the industry. We have completed over 250 feasibility studies and appraisals in outdoor hospitality in the US in the last 4 years. So we understand what it takes to bring a project from concept to reality. If this sounds like it could be helpful to you, you can go to our website, sageoutdooradvisory.com, and you can schedule a complimentary consultation with our team. Thanks. Now back to the show.
One interesting component about Outpost X that's even different than Disney World or Star Wars World is if there's a piece of it where you're asking, encouraging, or maybe even requiring the guests to step up and be an active participant in the experience. I mean, you can go to Disney World and all of the work is done around you, right? You just you sit on the ride and get to enjoy all this magic around you. But I haven't been to Disneyland in a long time, but I don't think there's as much interactivity where you're bringing something as an individual to that experience. You pay, you show up, you enjoy it. But, your piece, at least, if there is interactivity or they're getting dressed up or they're, going on a quest or getting engrossed in a story, it's a little bit, the onus is a little bit on them, which is really interesting. I mean, you said you've only been to the Burn for 2 days, but I think that's what makes the Burn so special is that, a lot of burners would hate if I said like Coachella and Burning Man actually have a lot in common as far as, what you see, the level of talent and the music and the art and the lights and the displays. And it's very comparable in terms of like the level of wonder around you and all the different mediums. But the difference between Coachella and the Burn is that all those things that you see at the Burn that are magical is put on and created by the people who are there. There is, you don't just get to show up and enjoy it. You have to come and put it on. You have to be a creator and you have to get engaged. And I think that's why it's such a captivating thing in this day and age, because most of it's pay to play. And it's interesting that your site, and your future concept sounds like it's tapping into that.
Participation is so huge. And that's why I didn't want to do luxury, because the concept of luxury is that someone else is going to wait on you hand and foot, and that you're going to have no surprises, and that your hotel experience is going to be perfect. But I don't want that. Personally, I don't want that experience. I've had that experience. I went from the Address Hotel in Dubai, which is a super, super luxury hotel. It didn't do anything for me, but then I went out in a cob structure with canvas pulled over it and took some camel rides and started thinking about how these Bedouin nomadic people have lived in the Arabian desert for thousands of years. And that really influenced me. It made an impact on my life. And I grew up conservative, right? So I'm not the usual suspect to go to Burning Man. And I actually get really frustrated about Burning Man slander. I got home and some of my family friends are like, so, like, you just out there, just in the orgies out there? I'm like, guys, you don't get it. Like, there's nothing like Burning Man. The way that it's the participation, like you said, it's all these people contributing, and it's like Burning Man is like an example of what the world could be like in so many different ways. And it's an experimental place. And I think people need that, like the way we live, I just don't think it's working out for us. It's just not working. So we need more places, I think, where people can go and then take that experience back home and slowly change the way we live.
I love it. I think, I have this conversation a lot, and, there's something for everybody there, but it's, it gets I think like a mismanaged reputation, but every time I come back from it, I'm like, wow, that is the pinnacle of human, and like restores my faith in humanity in terms of the inclusivity and the, giving with the expectation of receiving nothing in return, and the radical expression and creativity. It just brings out the best in people.
I've heard people be like, oh, it's just a bunch of dirty hippies. I'm like, I'd like to see you try to build a 60,000 person built town in a week. I'm like, maybe some people are hippies, but they're highly capable, highly funded, highly driven, organized, high self-actualized people. And you just commute, hit McDonald's, go to work, come home. Come on.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it makes me happy that there's a group of people, like, throughout the rest of the year, just knowing there's a group of people that are capable of building that it's like gives you a lot of hope.
Mm-hmm. And there's so much suffering involved. I remember my first burn, in a dust storm, and I was like, oh, this sucks. This is the worst. And then some, like crusty veteran burner, wise beyond his years, was like, "It's my favorite part, man." And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he's like, "No matter who you are, like, if you're a tech billionaire or Paris Hilton or a vagabond or a dirty hippie, like whoever is here has to endure this discomfort. And all the people that are here really want to be here. You have to want to be here because there's so much work and effort and discomfort that goes into it that it's just a bunch of psychos who are willing to endure all that."
Yeah, it's cool. It's a sacrifice. And I feel like anyone who's listening to this that is a hotel owner, there's just a lot you can incorporate from this conversation about fostering participation from your guests, because ultimate luxury is no longer a unique experience. Being treated like royalty you don't grow in that situation. There's a time and a place for that. When you've had a long year and you need to get away and rest, and you need a luxury experience where there's no surprises, that's a really important thing for people to have. But we don't cook food for people. We put ingredients in their fridge with themed recipes, and now these couples are cooking together with a recipe. How many couples are cooking with some recipe for 3 meals in a day? What kind of bonding takes place in that experience? You go into the Earth Lodge. There's sound bowls sitting there waiting for you. And so you could do a sound bath. And so we encourage people to make relationships there and proactively make friends with the other people who are there. And that's what we're trying to facilitate. But it really does make a lot of people uncomfortable. But I kind of am like, who cares? Deal with it.
Yeah.
Write your 1-star reviews. I don't care.
I think it is that kind of making people do stuff. I think like we were speaking to Bolt Farm Treehouse the other day, and they are kind of a luxury glamping escape. Like, but even they kind of make you make coffee in like a slow, intentional way. To get you to slow down and you might think, oh, I'd rather just have someone waiting hand on foot with the coffee, but it's forcing you to just kind of get out of the fast consumer mode and slow down and enjoy it. And even though that state is very different to yours, you share the kind of same principles of intentionality and just breaking out of the kind of consumerist routine, I suppose.
I think the glamping industry is doing what we're talking about, because glamping is all about getting in nature and kind of doing it yourself. And I think glamping is like a great thing. The Bolt family, they're such elite operators. It's actually really wears me out just watching them do everything that they do.
Makes you feel bad that you're not like there are levels to the game, right? It's like, geez.
Yeah, I think they're like the 1%er elite operators in experiential hospitality. You got like Ben Wolf, you've got Isaac French. It was cool. There was a unique stays event that Ben Wolf put on, and Connor, the Sage,
Sherry,
one of the owners of Sage was there.
Mm-hmm.
I met her. She was great. By the way, I think we need to get our outpost appraised with Sage at some point.
Perfect. Yeah. Were we supposed to have a conversation, or did you have a conversation with someone at Sage?
Yeah. What's one of the owners' names?
Sherry Halal.
Is it Sherry?
Sherry and Kristen.
Oh, I think maybe it was Kristen.
Sherry,
Do you know which
Sherry
one
was at the Unique Stay Summit.
Okay, so it was Sherry. Yeah, she's a sweetheart.
She is.
Yeah, she was great.
Well, I'll shoot you an email after, and we'll get something set up. When I was looking to launch my own project, I found this stunning 400-acre ranch, like 90 minutes north of San Francisco, and the area didn't end up working out, sadly. But the place where the lodging was to be was at the top of this ridge, and then where you arrive in the parking lot is down at the bottom. And the experience that I had created was one where when you arrive, you check in, And the very first thing you do is one, you turn over your cell phone for the weekend or for the duration of your stay. And like, if you need to use it, you can come down to the check-in and use it there, but it's not allowed to like go with you to the lodge. And that's just a requirement. And it's there in the lodge. It's there in check-in if you need it. But it's not allowed like up where you're staying. And then the second thing that you do is you take what I would call the pilgrimage to your room or a forest bath. And just the idea of, you know, as soon as you arrive at site, you check in your phone, maybe they give you a bag. They're like, hey, you know, there's a 1/4 mile walk up 400 feet of elevation gain through the forest. Like, this is a very key part of the experience. And like, as you take each step, just leave behind everything that you've, you know, from your week, from your month, from your work, from your stresses that you deal with. And, you know, with each step, like leave that behind. And when you arrive at your unit, you will be, you know, lighter and in a place of tranquility and peace and being in the moment. And it just kind of ties into what you're saying of like participation, you know, make them do something hard. And I'm surprised we haven't really had this conversation yet on the podcast, but yeah, luxury is something that is fairly commonplace now. And I think it is a more special experience when people get engaged.
How do you market to a particular tribe like you're trying to create? I know you talk about it a lot personally, and I suppose you're building up a personal brand. And is that the main vehicle to reach those people, to make sure that those kinds of people are coming to Outpost X, or are you doing it through the company socials? I'm curious to how you reach that, I say niche audience, but you know, a particular audience.
Yeah, it's interesting because we ran ads. We ran about $200,000 in ads to pre-sell out the place, and people paid $50 to lock in their discount. And so it only ended up costing us like $30,000 out of pocket for that. But the ads a lot of those people are not really our audience, interestingly enough. So we had 30 creators come and stay in July, August, and September. And those are our people. That's been the way that we find our people. I think it's just because someone sees a video from a creator that they know, and so they follow that creator because they are similar or they're interested in similar things. And so when they come to Outpost, they have a pretty accurate depiction of what the experience is going to be like, and they're also just similar to the creator who stayed there. And so that's been by far the biggest thing we've done. Like, that's what's driven 25 million views in the last couple months from those people coming. So we're like 70,000 followers now. So now our Instagram following is probably pretty curated. And we're going to start working with a guy named Nathan Vietz, who does a lot of the content he did Live Oak Lake. He works with a lot of different people.
He's been on the pod.
So now I'm going to start pouring on the organic kind of thing. But for anybody, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, hey, can you make our hotel viral? I'm like, if you let me design it, I could. But there's been some good insights with working with influencers. I found that influencers who are very descriptive about their experiences do really well. So Instagram models don't really drive the needle. So
I'm sure you've experimented.
Actually, I didn't even experiment. Somebody told me that. I got advice. Whenever I try to do something, I always call like 5 people to get the advice. And so, yeah, we focus on influencers who are curators and explorers, and they find things for their audience to do. They by far drive the needle because their audience is looking to take action. So we had one in particular, Peter Owens. He's the only creator we actually paid. And yeah, he's I think 17 million views now. It's funny, I say 25 million views and 17 million of them are for one person. But that's how the influencer games works. Is it's a volume game. We've had some influencers where I thought that their audience was going to be the perfect audience and they didn't get very many views. And then we've had others that I would have thought that just crushed it. And so it's a volume game. But one thing that's interesting is I'd have to go check. It's like over 70% of creators that have stayed at Outpost have set new views and shares record for the video that they post. So it's just a novelty. It's a curiosity. It's like Outpost is just poking the matrix. You know what I mean? It's just, people are just confused by it, and I love that.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of lessons in there for everyone. Is one, if you do design your site with variety in mind, and or just something that's just completely unique that's going to capture anyone's attention, then that can obviously help generate those results. But also, regardless of the experience you create, try and find influencers that speak to the people that you're trying to attract. You can look at follow count and engagement, but it's got to be the right type of engagement from the right types of people. Otherwise, presumably it'll just fall flat.
Everything at Outpost is based on a research study. So a lot of people think Outpost is just my ADHD preferences. It's not. I took all the OMG Airbnb category, and I had a virtual assistant create 30 different parameters around all those properties and score on those parameters. So distance from an airport, square footage, RevPAR, occupancy rate, floor to ceiling glass, uniqueness, strangeness. Is it rural or is it in a city? What's the distance from a major city? And the results were pretty incredible. And Outpost X was built based on all the results of that study. And so that's why Outpost doesn't make any sense to a typical person, but it makes sense if you study unique stays trends.
What were the trends or insights that came through that analysis of those unique stays that surprised you?
Okay, so within an hour and a half of a national park, within an hour of an airport, and within 2 hours of a major airport, rural couples getaways is the highest performing asset in the OMG Airbnb category. So that's a small footprint, high nightly rate. The sweet spot is the 400s to 600s a night. Couples are willing to splurge on that, but they're not expecting like a full resort because they want to get away. Rural outperforms metro,
Wow.
which is interesting,
Surprising.
right? People want to get out of the city. 70% of our guests at Outpost X are from California, and 50% of them drive, which is mind-blowing. Landscaped-based is the number one predictor of outcome. And I'm not talking about landscaping. I'm talking about the topography on which the property is. So Bolt Family Treehouse would be an example of topography, choosing the right landscape. Hocking Hills in Ohio with the cave. Well, there's multiple properties in the Hocking Hills, and they're all crushing it. Unique shapes. So a lot of people ask, well, like, what's the design aesthetic? And I'm like, strange shapes, unusual shapes. Ben Wolf at Onera, that's what he does with his structures, is they're just uniquely shaped. So they just get people's attention. He's got like the tube cylinder stuff on stilts. So there's like dozens and dozens of other elements from that. But I'll tell you this, guys. Viking Village, 10 out of 10 on every single box, every single category. And I have pitched my top 10 concepts to a few dozen people, really smart people, and just everyday people that would come that aren't like in unique stays. And the Viking concept just dominates. And so Puerto Rico is going to be an Avatar inspired project. It's going to be like nature, jungle. We took a 1994 Humvee and converted it into an Indiana Jones rig with like a big basket on top and shovels, and you're gonna hop into this Humvee and it's gonna go backwards down into the jungle while there's a story playing. There's waterfalls there. So yeah, I mean, Avatar is a big another IP I'm gonna rip off, and Then after that, it's going to be Vikings, which is no IP ripoff. That's like a universal. I guess I'm just going to rip off my heritage, I guess. But I don't think it's ripoff if it's your heritage, right?
Wow, you're kind of a mad scientist, which is the best kind.
It's cool because I am a little out of control, but I'm starting to get a lot of really smart people around me because the success of Outpost. It's cool. It's like I kind of had to go through doing the hardest project the hardest way, because if you can get 90% occupancy in a barren desert in the middle of nowhere, what can you do when it's in an easier spot? What can you do when you got power? You're connected to the grid and you already have all the entitlements. And we just got our conditional use permits to expand Outpost, and the county fought us on every little thing. And the engineers, every engineer, I went through 3 engineers because they just could not handle the strangeness of building. They're like, wait. So you're building in a floodplain on purpose? Yes, we're building on a lake bed. So an engineer brain says, but that means that's bad. That's going to flood. And we're like, yeah, that's the whole point of the concept, is that you're in the lake bed and the lake bed fills up and you got water around you. But it's cool because now the county is actually making concessions, and they're even adjusting. They're giving us concessions that conflict with their own code now, because now they're pumped about it and they're rooting for us now. So I think that my last company, Chamber Media, was kind of like this. We grew to 100 employees, 200 contractors, and we sold the company after 7 years. The first 3 years was just like generating belief around it, and no one really believed in it, and it was kind of a nothing burger. And that's how Outpost X was. Everyone's like, this crazy marketing guy is about to lose all his money out in the desert, and now it's working. And now all of a sudden people are like hopping aboard. So I'm really excited.
I'm excited for you, and I'm excited for these locations because it truly is so unique. Where are you at with these next few projects in the process? Like, do you have the land picked out? Is the land under contract, or is it owned? How are you raising the money? Like, what comes next?
Yeah, so Outpost X, we're going to replace a bridge loan that we have right now, probably with a private lender. And then we're going to raise investment to expand. So that'll probably be about a $1.5 million expansion, and that will double the unit size of Outpost X. And then we have 7 units in Puerto Rico that we're going to get finished. And the neighbor wants to contribute some of his land. So we're going to get the 7 units done, and then eventually we'll turn that into a 15-unit place. And then in the meantime, I'm starting to look for the right land deal for Viking Village, like find a piece of land that has all the right entitlements and all of that. And so as far as the capital raise front goes, I'm probably hundreds of hours in the last 3 or 4 months in studying this. And I've probably talked to maybe 30, 40 people now trying to learn this. And from what it sounds like, we're probably going to raise private investor money from minimum checks of probably $50,000 or $100,000. It seems to be the easiest way to do it. Banks don't really like to lend on this stuff, and you usually have to have 2 or 3 years of revenue history to get bank loans on this kind of stuff. And so I think that we're going to, the conclusion seems to be private lending and private investment. So for the first time, I'll be like entering this world of capital raising, and I've got a lot of really smart people around me to help me structure that and manage that, because, I'm not a finance guy. So you got to be really careful when you're raising money and do it right.
Travis, on your guest funnel, guest experience, pre-emails on the website, it's probably before they book, actually. Is there any point in the customer journey where you specifically tell customers what Outpost is and what it is not? Where it's like, hey, we are not luxury. We do not do this. We do not do that, but we do this and this. Like, does that happen?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. They get a really long email from me that says all of that.
Is that after they book?
Yeah. I think we send that about a week before they stay. But, I don't have people's email before they book. So
is there a place on the website, like what you can expect from the experience or something like that?
There isn't. And I think I should add it.
That might help mitigate that 20%. I know like Blake Smith at Walden Retreats, that's a big thing for him is, for a long time, and maybe he still does this, he would call if someone did, one on the website, it tells you what to expect and not to expect. And then before they would come stay at the property, he would actually have someone call them and like prepare them for what type of weather was coming up, what they would need for food or not need for food. So, because oftentimes bad reviews come from when, expectation doesn't meet reality. And, sending an email before certainly is helpful, but at that point, they've already paid the money. They're not going to just cancel. So, yeah.
That's a really good idea. I'm going to do that.
Nice. Glad I could help. Are you going to the Burn next year?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, we should talk offline. Do you have any asks of the audience or, any final comments or how people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I'm really available on Instagram. My Instagram is Travis_Chambers. So if you DM me there, I do check my message requests. Or you could email me at travis@chamberstays.com.
Oh, Travis, thank you. It was we said at the start before you arrived that it would be something very different from what we've had, and I think you definitely delivered on that. It's great someone going down a completely different path and bringing his own tribe along with it. So we're excited to see what's coming next. I'm sure it'll be just as fun, and when you have to come back on when we've got the Viking village and the Avatar village up and running, it should be great.
Heck yeah.
Sweet.
And I think you really articulated some things that were like right in front of my eyes in terms of hospitality that I'd never quite fully put together. So this was really helpful and enlightening. So yeah, thanks, Travis. This was fun.
Thanks, guys. Y'all are awesome. That was a really great chat. I enjoyed that.
All right. Well,
cheers.
Have a great day. Cheers.
Yeah.
Thanks, y'all.